Well, are the rumors true? Is there a mass exodus of people leaving the Tampa Bay area? Well, in this video, I've got a lot of reasons why I think and I know why people are deciding to get the heck out of Dodge. So let's get after it right now. Well, I'm over here today in my little secret spot, don't tell anybody, Mobley Park. It's over in Oldsmar on the water, clearly. And as you can see, not a lot of people know about it. It is a weekday, but it is one of my hidden gems. But I thought that this is really the best setting to talk about why people are trying to leave Florida. It's also a reason why, over here, why I'm not leaving. I have a lot of things to share with you why I think people are leaving, and it's for good reason. There is some data to prove why people are leaving Tampa. It's just becoming too unaffordable. But let me talk to you about some of the reasons why I think they're leaving. One of the first reasons that's on my list, why every now and then I'm always like, oh my gosh, can I really stand living here any longer, is the traffic. And you would think that by now I would get it. But after 6 years of being back, I learned how to drive in Tampa. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and I've lived in bigger cities than Los Angeles even, and figuring out how to maneuver crazy drivers. I've never in my life had such bad drivers as I've had in Tampa. Now, I have a lot of reasons, and I did my research as to why that is. Number one, Forbes is saying that Tampa is one of the fastest growing metros in the country. So now that is bringing so many more people to our area, and our infrastructure is having a really hard time keeping up. Did you know we're rated 12th in the nation for worst cities with traffic? It's not shocking to me. And a lot of things support this, right? Like I mentioned, we don't have healthy infrastructure, and most of everybody lives in the outskirts of town. So everybody has to travel the same roads to get into all the big popular areas, especially if you work in downtown or St. Pete or some of those larger cities. So everything gets bottlenecked. Also, our area is filled with tourists. It's becoming a year-round thing. It used to be only around spring break or summer. But now that we've become so popular, people are vacationing, in the winter, in the fall, and spring and summer. So it does add to our already congested traffic. Not to mention, we don't have a major public transit system yet. There have been talks about it, but I haven't seen anything happen anytime soon. You've got the little things here and there, especially on the Pinellas side. We've got the Sunrunner. There's, of course, the little e-board trolley, but those are not really going to get you from point A to B if you're a commuter. Those are just fun little ways to get around all of the fun attractions that Tampa and St. Pete has to offer. That's not really going to help most people when they're looking to go from their house to the grocery store or to the hospital per se. So traffic is one of the big reasons why I think people are leaving Tampa. My next reason is pretty much the most obvious reason, especially in my industry: rents and the housing market. People are just getting priced out of our area. Where Tampa and St. Pete used to be below the national average when it came to housing, now not so much. We're either at the average or just creeping up above the average. The average rent, according to Redfin, is $1,600 a month. Now, I disagree with this because the rents that I've seen around town are averaging a little bit more like $1,800 to $2,000. That's a mortgage payment for most people.
That's more than our mortgage.
So if you're not able to make a mortgage payment, how are you going to be able to pay for rent? It's just mind-blowing to me that they haven't figured that out yet. The average home price here in Tampa right now is leveling out right at about $450K. So again, that's really above what most people make on average. So there was an article that came out a couple of months ago that talked about you have to make almost $80,000 a year just to afford rent in Tampa. I think that's ridiculous. I know some people that have had change of life situations, relationships, whatever, where they had to then become a renter again, and they had to, at a nice middle-aged place in life, have to get a roommate. And it's really bizarre to me that we haven't regulated that yet. So fingers crossed, they're going to start working on that. Just for a little history. So when I moved back to the Tampa area in 2018, the average home price was $248,000. And in Pinellas County, it was $254,000. So not that far off from each other. And now, 2023, we're at $455,000. That to me is crazy. Now, on another note, I've made a lot of money in equity in my house. But on the flip side, the average person is having a hard time even being able to afford rent let alone a mortgage. The other thing I'm noticing that people are really talking about is, and I'm going to tell you personally how it's affected me, is the cost of living. And so, and as you see this big cloud behind me, we're chasing rainstorms again. My utility bill, I can tell you, has gone up about 10%. And so when I looked at the data, that percentage is skewed depending on what article you read. But they're trying to figure out a way to cap that. But right now, we really don't have any power because the utility companies can charge whatever they want. So we live in a state that's perpetually hot. You have to run your air conditioner. And I just feel like the utility companies are taking advantage of that. So you're gonna have anywhere from an average, if you have just like a normal house, your utility bill can be anywhere from $250 to $500 a month, just in keeping the lights on and the AC and that sort of thing. There is something that I did with my utilities through TECO, Tampa Electric Company. After being in my condo for a year, was I did an energy assessment, and I had them come. They send a third party out, they blow insulation into my attic to help with that, and then they did a weather treatment on my door, etc., and all that kind of stuff. Now, it was free for me. I've heard some people had to pay for it, so don't hold me to that, but that's something that you can do. Also, on the TECO website, they do an average of your bill every month. So if you have at least 1 year of cycle of your bill, you can ask them to give you the average. So every month you'll have an average bill, right? So for me right now, I'm paying $143 a month, and I pay that for 12 months. But in January, they're going to reassess that, and that could go up, and I'm potentially going to see an uptick of about 10% in January. So I'll keep you posted on that. But energy efficiency is really important here in this kind of climate that we're in. So you got to factor in utilities. Let's also talk about homeowners insurance, because that is, a hot buzzword right now with everybody. And I personally, being that I'm in a condo, I've noticed my property insurance is not that bad. I'm gonna be honest, but it went up maybe $400. Now, when you're talking about a single family home, that could be double, So again, you have to keep in mind there's lots of legislation that's trying to work in favor of the residents. We'll see over time. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but a lot of this has to do with the massive growth that Tampa has had so quickly. We just can't keep up. So I think on average, a lot of the homeowners insurance has gone up about 21% overall. Now, I think just in 2023, it went up about 10%, but it's going to be dependent upon your insurance company, your property, that sort of thing. But you do have to start thinking ahead about what is your property insurance going to be when you move in. Let's say you're relocating, and then what could it ultimately be a year from now? You got to plan for that. So what are some of the reasons, again, for this inflation of our home insurance? I think a lot of you guys know we live in a high natural disaster area. And as you all have heard, like farmers and I think even State Farm have left Florida as far as being, one of the insurers. So inflation has a lot to do with that as well. I tell my clients, shop local. Shop local for your property insurance. They're not going to go anywhere. I personally have my own insurance through a local company. I've never had a problem. And honestly, they haven't, like I said, haven't increased it that much. So I can't vouch for that. But if you want some information on that, go ahead and send me a message and I can help you with that if you're here locally, struggling. But as we're seeing more natural disasters occurring, not only in Florida, but in other states, it only makes sense because there's so much insurance fraud that they have to make up their money somehow. And unfortunately, we're the ones that have to pay for it. Let's move on to flood insurance. This is always such a touchy subject with people. And it's hard because FEMA changed the rules and designation of a flood zone. It used to be zip code. And now it has more to do with the elevation of the property, the conditions of the property, and the distance from the water. This is why we love Florida. You'll miss it if you're not here. And you know what? I'm going to provide a link in the description that's going to help you with a little bit more information on flood insurance and getting insured and what you should look out for, because it's not just a quick answer on flood insurance. If you're going to be in the Pinellas County or Manatee County close to the water, you're going to probably be in a flood zone. and even up to Pasco on the Tarpon Springs side. So you have to realize the closer you get to the coast, you're probably in a flood zone, okay? But you do have to be prepared for those premiums. If you've been in a home that has a flood zone, you might not see it creep up that much. I think there's an 18% cap. But if you're coming into a property new, you're gonna be paying those higher premiums. Be prepared for that. And let's talk about the weather, since we've got this dark cloud, that I'm chasing here. 2023 was the hottest summer on record on the earth. So you can imagine what that means for Tampa and St. Petersburg, especially because
we stay hot 98% of the time.
So it's not just that it's hot, it's humid. And so yes, Arizona and states like that might be hotter and might feel more, you might feel the heat on your skin. Like that's my experience of like Texas and Arizona. It's like, it feels like your skin is burning off. But in Tampa, the humidity is suffocating. So when it comes to the summer times and wanting to do fun things, that's sort of almost like our winter. We don't come outside much. And it's, especially if you're somebody that works outside, it can be horrendous. So you've got to be able to handle some of the hottest summers of your entire life in Florida. And I had a couple, it's a sad story. I really fell in love with them. I met them over YouTube. I helped them find a home, and it was during the summer, and they had never really experienced a long-term staying in Florida having the heat, and neither did their children. And of course, in the summertime, there's no school, there's no activities, and there weren't kids playing outside because it's too dang hot. So they ended up having a miserable time, and they packed up and they went back home. I was so sad. But it happens, right? You have all these high expectations of an area you've been dreaming to move to, and then the reality of it is not so great sometimes, unfortunately. Not to mention, obviously, hurricanes, but I think people get a little overexcited about the possibility of a hurricane. The biggest thing you have to worry about is water. And we can have flooding at any time. It doesn't matter the rain. It has to do with the storm surges. If the water recedes, it's got to come back, right? So our last hurricane we had didn't do the damage that the storm surge did. And it flooded a lot of people that had never been flooded before. So again, natural disasters are unpredictable. I can't tell you if we're gonna have one, not gonna have them. I'm not a weatherman. You need to follow Dennis Phillips. He is my weather guy, and he says, you only panic if he panics. And that's the way I live my life when it comes to hurricanes. Not to mention, you're gonna have tropical storms and just thunderstorms all the time, and you might have flooding from that. Wind, most of the wind here, again, unless we're in the eye of the hurricane, it's not gonna do much damage. But as you saw, if you watched the hurricane that, wiped out Fort Myers, that's a really extreme case. They had more flooding than anything. So something to consider. You also have to remember that Tampa has an old vibe. Tampa and St. Petersburg, they have an old vibe. It's a lot of history around here. Most of these cities were discovered in the early 1900s. And so we have a lot of historical homes. Still, we have those brick lane streets in a lot of parts of town. And then you have the subdivisions that were developed in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And so a lot of those homes are not, renovated. And so I think people, look at videos on YouTube. And so I try to be as honest as I can with you, because you're not coming to a cookie cutter, community that's got the green grass and the palm trees everywhere and the houses are all beautiful. No, they're not. Some of them don't look so great, and some of them are really small, and some of them need some love. Now, the good thing that's been happening is that a lot of people have been coming and renovating these homes, and yes, they're making a profit off of them, and that's what's happening to our housing market. But the homes are now getting renovated, and you're getting new roofs and you're getting new windows, which is very important for hurricane season. So there are some positives to it. And because Tampa and St. Petersburg, again, has that rich history, you're gonna have a lot more mom and pop kind of shops and restaurants and that sort of thing. So like Seminole Heights, I think, does it really well. They sort of took that whole vibe and really made it more modern, more hip. But that's not the case in a lot of neighborhoods that are still a little bit older. But if you want newer homes, more modern homes, you have to go to the outskirts of town. It's gonna take you north, and it's gonna take you east and southeast, actually. So you gotta keep that in mind. If you're okay not living in the metropolitan area of Tampa and you don't have to commute, then fine, go check out some of the new construction areas. Take me with you. I'd love to help you. I've been helping a lot of people with new construction right now because why not? You get all the warranties and everything. You got a brand new, fresh baby home for you, to enjoy with your family. I understand the appeal. So just keep in mind when you're focusing on the Tampa St. Pete area and you're trying to narrow down areas, you've got to understand, guys, that some of these houses are not going to be as pretty as these new construction homes that you're seeing on Zillow. And I had some clients say that, they want some land in Clearwater, and I hate to, kill people's dreams, but there's just no land in Clearwater. If you want land, you got to go north or you got to go northeast. That's where all the land is. So got to keep your expectations a little bit more realistic when you're coming to our area. And if it doesn't work for you, then move on to the next city, right? So you got to keep in mind that Tampa and St. Petersburg have been going through a lot of growing pains, especially since 2000, 2001. And we had this mass rush of people moving here. And all of a sudden, all these companies started to come here. And Tom Brady came here. And all of a sudden, everybody was like, Tampa? And all of us have lived here. We're like, oh, crap. They're all moving here. And there's people in my comments that I see that are like, don't move here. And guess what? You really shouldn't move here if you can't handle all the things that I've discussed in this video. Because let me tell you, we're going to continue to grow and the prices are going to continue to probably go up. Let's hope some of the things that I've discussed today will get regulated, but it may be a long time before that happens. So if your budget can't afford it, I'm sorry, you're going to have to take Tampa off your list. It breaks my heart to tell you that, but it's the truth. But if you still want to move to the Tampa St. Pete area, I'd love to hear from you. All of my links are below. You can communicate with me or jump on my calendar and we can have a consultation about what you'd like to do and how you'd want to relocate to the Tampa area. And as always, guys, I really appreciate it if you'd hit that thumbs up. That really helps my channel grow, and hitting that subscribe button helps a lot as well. And until next time, everybody, I'll see you around.